Welcome back to the channel. My name is Douglas, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you an overview of the Nord Stage 4, walking you through the functionality that's in this keyboard, as well as demoing you some of the amazing and powerful sounds. So what you just heard there was one of the programs that comes with this. Using some of the new arpeggiator functions, you get a bit of that beat in the background. And this is just one sound that leverages a whole bunch of different layers. In this case, there's 4 layers that make up that sound. So I'm gonna walk you through all of that in this video. This keyboard comes at a really high price tag. I think after taxes, I paid about 6,000 US for this keyboard. So as we look at these features and we play these sounds, the question comes up, does this keyboard offer enough value to outweigh the price? And that's something that I can't answer for you. To me, because I'm such a believer in the Nord Stage line, I use the Nord Stage 3 all the time, that for me, the Nord Stage 4 was the natural progression, the upgrade path, right? And I firmly believe, after playing around with this for a while, I firmly believe in the changes that have taken place between the Nord Stage 3 and the Nord Stage 4. So let's jump right into it. I'm gonna work left to right on this, but first I'm gonna talk about some general concepts with the panel and how the different modules are laid out. So on the keyboard itself, we have the organ section, the piano section, this central area with the menu and screen on it, the synth section, and over on the right, the layer effects. I'm gonna show each of these in the overhead camera as I talk through them in a bit more detail. So each of these sections has this on-off button that allows us to quickly turn on and off these sound engines or sections on the Nord Stage 4. So to kind of demonstrate this, I'm going to initialize the entire keyboard and just kind of reset things. And you can do this with this layer init function. So you hold shift and you tap on layer init, and it asks you if you want to initialize the organ, piano, synth. We're just going to say all. So this button 1 corresponds, you see these little lines under the screen. We're going to tap on all, and that's going to bring us back to just this white grand. Beautiful grand sound, but let's say we want to start with the organ. We're going to turn the piano off, turn the organ on, and if we just play this as is, we've got these drawbars and things here in the organ section. If I'm playing this and I turn this off, now it kills the sound. I could turn the piano on, turn that off, turn the synth on. And that gives us the ability to quickly turn on and off these sections. Now, with these sections on, we have another way to enable and disable the layers within this. So you'll notice in each panel, there are these volume sliders. So we have 2 in the organ, 2 in the piano, and 3 in the synth. Underneath that, we have this A and B designation. We have A and B on the piano as well. And then on the synth, we have A, B, and C here. Now what these are the layers within each sound engine. So coming back again to the organ, if we look at this, we have layer A and layer B. We can control the volume of both those layers here independently right from the front panel. We can also turn on and off these by holding down on the on-off, or if we want both of them on, we can tap both of them together. If we wanted to turn both of them off, we hold down on the A and B buttons and turns off that section. So again, on, both on, and then to turn them off, you hold one or the other. So what's great about this is, as we're working through this, we can have 2 organs, 2 pianos, and 3 synth sounds, each with their own settings in terms of what we see here in the sound engine, as well as effects, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. So when you see the blinking light above the button, that is the active layer for the rest of the settings in this panel. And so we can quickly flip between these in order to change settings. And so to kind of demonstrate this, on A, I could say this is going to be our pipe organ 1, and for now I'm going to turn off my layer 2. And I have my piano section on, so I'm going to just turn that off. And then on my B, so I can tap that, it turns this on. I have my B3 here. So now I want both of them on. I tap both of them and it layers them together. And I can flip between those. So let's say I'm playing this C chord. Now I'm on my A because that's blinking. So I can bring that back. I can flip to my B. And as I move back and forth, you'll see my settings here change. I can also quickly change my volume of my layers. We also have our octave shifts and things like that that sit here. So and so you can see we're able to quickly make adjustments to our layer, and I didn't touch the screen at all, which is one of the amazing things with the Nord Stage line. We also have this rotary speaker right here. So as you noticed, I was switching between the slow and the fast. So let's just turn our layer off by holding down. Come back over to here. Let's make this the B3. We have our drawbars here, and the drawbars, just to highlight a couple things here, is the LED indicates where that value is of the drawbar. And then we also have the physical drawbar. These feel really good, and it gives us the ability to come in here So I have the hammer action 88 key, and it's still, I would say the action is on the lighter side. Maybe not quite as quick to play as the semi-weighted waterfall keyboard edition, but I really like this if we're talking about the pianos. Makes it really nice to get some good dynamics in there. And so let's talk a little bit now on the piano section. Now keep in mind, I will be coming out with videos going in depth on each sound engine within the Nord Stage 4. So stay tuned for those. I will also be putting out videos comparing the Nord Stage 4 to the Nord Stage 3, as well as the Yamaha YC and MPC Key 61, just because I think it's kind of nice to know how other keyboards stack up to the Nord Stage 4. And with the Nord Stage 4 being so expensive, seeing some other keyboards that are much less expensive and how they stack up to something like this. But I think as you'll see as we go through this layering capabilities, you see the power behind what we're able to configure. I mean, this is a sound designer's dream, especially with the new synth engine that they've put in this. So let's talk about the piano section here for a minute. So right here, we can turn the piano section on, and same functionality as with the organ section, we can flip between our two layers. So we can make this an upright, switch to our other layer, and then we could tap both of them together to layer them. And then again, we can adjust the volumes of those. And then as we activate each of these layers, so again, the blinking light means that this is the active layer and the settings here apply to that layer. And so our amber upright on our layer A, we have this nice little solo button here, which will solo our active layer. So in this case, at layer A of our piano section, if we tap solo, you see that our LED indicator blinks now, and it's showing us exactly only this layer and what that sounds like. This is great from a design perspective when you're building sounds because you can isolate that layer and listen to the effects and the things that are on that layer and then unsolo and see how that fits into the overall. So on solo, again, we can flip between our isolated layers. And then we could unsolo it. And that, again, general layer functionality is the same whether you're in the organ, piano, or synth section. It allows you to solo and flip between the layers. Again, extremely quick. Now let's go in and do a couple of adjustments here on our white grand. Let's make that a soft timbre. And then there's this really cool dynamic compression here. So let's just solo this layer. Now, traditionally, you could put a compressor, but you might get a little bit of that hard limit at the top. Well, what they've done here is they've given us 3 levels of dynamic compression that we can apply separate from our other effects in our effects layer. So this doesn't take up an effect layer effect, and we can go in here. So watch the difference. What this is going to do is even out the lighter with the harder playing to bring it kind of all to the same volume rather than squashing it like a traditional compressor might do or be more likely to do. So as I'm playing this, if I tap on this, that gives me just the first level of dynamic compression. Number 2 gives me an additional bit of that. So it's really, the contrast is there. If I play right here and then turn it on, and it just accentuates some of the softer notes and brings those up and kind of gives me this magical, like, which is great because as I'm playing, I tend to play pretty hard, but I love the softer dynamics of a piano sound. So I don't have to slam the key to get a loud sound. I can play it softer, get those softer characteristics of the piano without having to slam the key, and it works really well. So that's great. You have some things around the acoustics of the piano. Unison allows you to almost give that detuned effect. Probably comes in on kind of a lo-fi sound or things like that, where you combine that with some effects and you get that really nice out of tune. You used to have to use an A and a B layer in the Nord Stage 3. It's great that you don't have to do that anymore with Unison. And obviously you have your splits and your octave shifts on here as well. And you'll notice that there's this little FX focus light right here. And what this is going to do is as I switch my layers, it's going to switch the layer effects section to reflect the effects for that particular layer. Now, what's interesting is, we'll talk about the effects here a little bit more, but every single layer here, with the exception of the organs, allows you to have a separate set of effects for each layer. So on my piano, for example, I could come in here, we've got this soloed right here, and I'm gonna actually turn off my organ panel. So in our piano section here, we have this upright on our A layer. So I could come in here and add some reverb to this. And on my effects section, I'm going to separate. So with the effects, again, I'll talk about this here in a minute, but I can have my effects be to both the layers at the same time or separate. So I'm going to separate them. And then on my B layer, when I tap that, my effects section automatically switches over to the effects that are applying to layer B. And so I'm going to change this to the cathedral. It's a little too wet. And then we unsolo that. So as you can see, you can start to build some extremely powerful sounds with the ability to have 2 organs, 2 pianos, 3 synths, and then separate effects for all your synth layers, your piano layers, and then it allows you to have your effects for your organ section as a whole. And as you move through the programs that they've built and included as part of the Nord Stage 4, you really start to see the power behind how you can leverage the arpeggiator and the effects, especially on your synth layers, to create some powerful sounds like this scissor split preset. So just crazy that you're able to accomplish that with a single program with the layers and the effects and the arpeggiator. So let's talk a bit about this center section right here. Now, typical to the Nord Stage series, we have the morph assign functions, insanely powerful to be able to tie things to an expression pedal, the wheel, the control pedal, and I'll be getting the triple pedal here from Nord when that ships. So I'll be doing videos on that as well and how to leverage that within the keyboard to control various parameters. We have this split, master clock, transpose. All that's pretty typical if you're familiar with the Nord Stage 3. And when we get down into this area here, where we have some differences and some cool things here. So with the Nord Stage 4, we have the preset library. So we can go into the preset library, and it gives us pre-built, almost like sound presets for the organ, for the piano, and for the synth. There's a bunch of empty slots in there for you to save your own presets. But where this is really cool is if I just initialize this and come back into my piano, I can choose a preset. Let's say this bright felt. And then I can come out of here and I can start to layer another sound onto this from the synth section or the organ. And what's great about these presets is I can build, like for my worship programs that I built for the Nord Stage 3, is the perfect worship pad that I built. I can build that, save it as a preset, and then anytime I want to bring that into a sound or build a new program, I can just grab that synth sound from the preset library, and I don't have to either take a program and modify the program or build that synth sound from scratch every time. So really cool that you can build a custom sound, save it as a preset in the preset library, and then call that up at any time as you're building a new program, or I'm in a layer and I remember, I want to bring that pad sound in. I can go to my preset library, grab that pad, boom, I'm done. So we have live mode as well on here. So live mode allows me to have 8 different quick recall programs here. And with live mode, every change you make saves instantly to that live mode preset. So when I leave and come back, it's exactly the way I left it, rather than a program where every time you leave and you come back to that program, it resets back to the saved state of that program. We also have this layer scene button right here. Now what's interesting with this is I can build a layered sound, and then I can have a second copy on the layer scene 2 that allows me to disable and enable my layers. So I can have 2 variations of this sound, not with different sounds on the layers, but let's say I build and bring in this. And now let's say that I want this sound, but I want a soft piano sound, which I have on my layer 2. So I tap on layer scene 2, and now I enable layer B, and I'm gonna disable these first 2 layers and just have this shimmery. So now I can tap this layer scene 2, and you'll notice on the regular layer scene, I have my active layer 1 and my active layer 3. And at the push of a button, I can switch to that second variation. So while you can't necessarily do things like have different sounds on these 2 layer scenes, it does allow you to do a bit of variation to your existing sound, and at the press of a button, switch between them rather than needing to go and disable these when you're playing live to get that variation of the sound. Really cool, really powerful, especially for live playing. Having that ability there is really awesome. So now let's talk about the synth section of the Nord Stage 4. So as I mentioned before a couple of times, there are 3 layers within our synth section. Now I'll be doing separate videos on both the arpeggiator and going into depth on the synth section as well and building sounds from the ground up. But just a few noteworthy things within here. Now, number 1 is in this mode, we have samples and then analog, which is our synth section here. Under samples, we have different categories that we can scroll through. And then within each category, we have the samples. So you'll see 1 of 12, 1 of 18. So let's, if we just go to the trumpet, no effects or anything on that. We could throw a little reverb. We can go through here. And the layout is great for finding the various samples here. And so again, our samples, we can run through those. We have a lot of different categories here. And I think the samples sound really good. As I was flipping through them, there's a lot of really usable and then if we flip back to analog, and again, let's talk a bit about how we can leverage the functionality here. I'm going to go back. We play just a bit of this. You'll see that it's utilizing the 3 layers. And what's really cool about this is each of the 3 layers is using different elements of the arpeggiator and the effects. So if we flip to slot A, we have white noise, and we can solo this. That's what that sound is there. Layer B. Again, a bit of a different arpeggiator there, and we can look at the arpeggiator settings by tapping on this menu button in the arpeggiator section, and we can scroll using this 1 through 5 in this wheel here. We can scroll through, and what they've done is they've added the arpeggiator pattern section here in the menu. So we can move through the different presets, a whole bunch of pre-built presets on the patterns, or we can go in and we can modify each of the settings within this pattern to be however we want that to be. So again, insanely powerful on the synth section here. Again, we could come over to here. And you'll notice that this is split here. So this synth section here is in this zone, and these are in the lower zone. So just within the synth section there, we are able to do a whole bunch of stuff with these 3 layers and the effects and the arpeggiator. A couple other things here. We have just all of your normal like LFO oscillator filter sections. Obviously with the different modes, being able to bring samples into these on layers. And we also have the unison functionality here. And in conjunction with the effects, we're able to build these extremely complex sounds, all from the front panel, barely even touching the screen at all. So let's talk a bit about the layer effects section, because I think this is another area where the Nord Stage 4 has been vastly improved from the Nord Stage 3, and it becomes an insanely powerful tool for building and customizing your sounds. So if we come in here, the layer effects section, we can easily turn that on and off. So we can disable the entire effects. And I'm actually going to turn off my synth and come in here, do a layer init, have my piano section on here. On my 2 layers, I'm I just have a white grand. And let's go ahead and put a soft on the layer A. And let's come over to our effects section again. And here we have the effects focus section. Now it's set to currently follow focus. So as we tap on the different layers, it's going to jump the effects section to what's applying to that particular active layer. We can hold shift and we can tap on these sections to change it from the effects applying to the entire section of all 3 layers in the case of the synth, 2 in the piano or the organ section, or the individual layers having their own individual layer effects. So tap on that, you'll notice all 3 are lit up. That means the effects section is applying directly to the entire synth section. Shift, tap on that again. Now, each of these layers within our synth section can have their own set of effects. Now, the piano has A and B, and then the organ allows you to have one set of effects for your entire organ section. Now we can use these buttons. You'll notice they don't really do much for me until I take off follow focus, and then I can cycle between my A and my B and then my A, B, C on the synth. And what that's going to do is allow me to modify the effects without needing to touch my layers over here. I like to keep follow focus on because it makes sense. Activate a layer, modify the effects for that layer. So if we look in the effects section here, we have the mod 1, mod 2 effect slots with our typical chorus, tremolo, auto pan, things like that. We have this pump effect and this spin effect, which are new for the Nord Stage 4. Really awesome effects there. We have the amp sim and EQ, delay, compression, and reverb. Now each of these has an on-off button for the particular section within the layer effects section. And so we can quickly turn them on and off. And then within each type, there's a variation. So if I turn on my reverb, for example, and let's just make sure that we've got our piano section on, we're going to turn on reverb for our active layer B. We can go from 0, and now we can go to 100% wet. So this is 0, completely dry. And in between. Now this is really great because you can do some really cool things with a completely wet reverb sound. Let's come down to Cathedral and let's hold shift, and you'll notice there are 2 shift buttons on the Nord Stage 4. This allows us to access functions easier over here without needing to use 2 hands. And it's really cool because anytime you see labels underneath the buttons, you access those by holding shift and tapping on that button. Now what we can do here is we can hold shift and we can tap on our type button for Cathedral, and that brings us into a bit more of this cloud reverb. Now you used to need a pedal or a virtual instrument plugin to get this sort of nice cloud effect here, or cloud delay. And I love that they've included it now in the Nord Stage 4. So let's take this example. Let's make that 100% wet. And let's grab our layer A. And on layer A, we don't have any effects. Let's turn both those layers on. Now on our layer B, let's make that soft. And let's solo this for a second. Now what's really cool in the reverb section is we can pick between normal, dark, and light. So listen to the difference here. That's normal. Dark just gives us a bit more of a dark tone to it. And then bright. Let's turn our dynamic compression on for both these layers, and let's put these together. So we're going to turn solo off. And then we can use our volume of this layer to adjust how much of that 100% wet reverb So So really cool what you can do here with the effects and having the ability to do independent effects on your piano and synth layer. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a demonstration of how you can leverage these differently on your different layers. And I will do separate videos going into the effects even more, because I could spend a good amount of time just walking through these effects, and I want to kind of keep this video to a bit of an overview. So let's talk about the Nord Stage 4 and some of the connections that it includes. So on the back, we have our headphone, we have the monitor in, so we can plug an aux cable and monitor an MP3 player or something like that through the Nord Stage 4. We have 4 channel out, so we could route our sounds differently between those 2 outputs. We have the control pedal, the sustain pedal, the triple pedal input. We also have an organ swell input. We have MIDI in and out like your traditional 5-pin MIDI. We also have a rotor pedal, a USB, and a foot switch inputs on the back as well. So the USB would be for connecting to the Nord Stage 4 to your computer and transferring sounds in and out, backing up sounds that you've built, and downloading new sounds. So the great thing with Nord is that when you buy a Nord Stage 4, you have access to their entire sound library, and you can go in and download anything. So they'll come out with new piano sounds and other new sounds that you can just go and download for free and load those onto your Nord Stage 4. I'll be doing separate videos talking about backing up sounds, loading sounds through the Nord Sound Manager, so stay tuned for those. And if we look at this from a value perspective, you might ask yourself, is the Nord Stage 4, in the case of the Hammer Action 88, worth pretty much $6,000? Now, the other versions are less, but not by a whole lot. And so is it worth that dollar amount? For you, you have to make that determination. For me, just because I am, like I mentioned earlier, very invested in the Nord Stage line. I use the Nord Stage 3 all the time, and it was time for me to upgrade. For me, made complete sense. I don't know of anything on the market today that has not only the sound that the Nord has. It sounds insanely good. The pianos, the organs are some of the best, if not the best, in my opinion. The ability to do the quick layering, the in-depth effects, and all the variations to the effects. Your options are pretty much endless in the sounds that you can build for this. And for me, playing this live at my church, with the Nord Stage 3, it was the perfect keyboard to make quick adjustments on the fly. And with the Nord Stage 4, I'll be using this coming weekend and in the future live, and I'll be putting it through its paces, as well as developing custom worship sounds for you guys. So stay tuned for all of that. To me, this is absolutely a beast when it comes to live and stage. And then even sitting here at my studio desk, messing around with the sounds, I get lost completely in just the ability that's there to build these custom sounds. If you have videos you'd like to see me make, I'll be doing kind of the regular gamut of videos that I do, tutorials on how to use every portion of this keyboard. But if there are specific videos that you would like to see, throw those in the comments below. I'll be keeping track of those and adding those to my list of videos to make. If you're interested in the videos around the Nord Stage 4, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you see those pop up in your feed. Thanks for watching, stay inspired, and keep making that music.